So I appreciate all of you that were able to log in today and to log in on time, actually, so we can go ahead and get started. I'm not sure if today's session will be the whole hour. It's just kind of hard to say when you're doing a panel and I'm not putting together the actual presentation, but we're lucky enough to have 3 people here with us today to be on our panel. I'm not surprised that some of the other panelists that I had asked were not able to join us because things come up in the life of a principal, and I know that a lot of schools have got some things going on right now that is causing them to not be able to be with us. And I don't mean to say that the people who are here with us don't have things going on, because they certainly do. But apparently just today in particular, at this very moment, there's nothing going on that they couldn't sit with us for a few minutes and chat with all of you. So just a little background, this is the 3rd session of this Aspiring Principals group. We have had as many as 70 people on the chat, are in the meeting, the past meetings. Today it looks like we're over 50 already. And the first session was on leadership. The second session was on the roles and responsibilities of being a principal. And this 3rd session is on the just hearing from some principals that are not brand new, but are newer to the position that they're in. And they'll tell you a little bit about that. So we have today with us, well, let's first talk about what we're going to do. I always like to make sure the targets are out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about a professional path. So you're going to hear from each of our panelists, what path did they take to get them where they are. And then you're going to talk a little bit about the daily life of a principal. And then finally talk about some of the challenges associated with the position. Now, I know that all of you are in education, so all of you have seen the principal in their role. And I know that you have a pretty good idea of what the job of the principal is. But one of the lessons I learned is I had an assistant principal work with me for 3 years. And then she took a role in one of our other buildings and as a principal. And about 3 or 4 months into that job as a principal, she came back and she said to me, I honestly thought I knew exactly what you did every day, working with you so closely. But I can tell you now that I'm in the role of a principal, I had no clue some of the things that were going on in the background that you were doing. And that isn't to say that, oh my gosh, because this job is just the most important job in the world. I'm just really saying to you that none of us really know the job until we've done the job. And I know that I do not know the job of a teacher right now, especially in this current environment, and I wouldn't pretend that I do. So just hearing a little bit from them about what that job is like right now, I think will be important and will be helpful to you. So I have some questions that I'm going to be asking them. A couple of you were kind enough to send me some questions, and I think I've included those. And then I am going to be monitoring the chat at all times. So if you have a comment, you want to ask a question for clarification, go ahead and use that chat and I will monitor it and I will bring that question up to the panelists when the time is right. So we're going to go ahead and get started by learning first who our panelists are. My thing is just jumping all over the place. Sarah Allen is the principal at Grayling High School. Tawny Hiscock is the Atlanta area schools K through 12 principal. So one principal for the whole district. And Nancy Sprague is the Sheboygan area 8 through 12 principal. So we have 3 principals in 3 different roles, and they're here to tell you a little bit about their job. So first, because I want them to put our participants to put a face to a name, would you start first, starting with Sarah, then Tawny, and then Nancy? Just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about the dynamic or size of your school and kind of what your position is. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hey, hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Allen. As she already mentioned, I'm at Grayling High School. We have this year about 400 students. Prior to COVID, we were set to be in more like the 475 range, and we're down to right around 400. I guess, do you want me to go ahead and talk about my path on how I got here?
No, we'll come back to that, I think.
Come back to that.
Yep, thanks, Sarah. How about you, Tawny?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tawny Hiscock. I'm the K-12 principal here in Atlanta. We are a single building district, so we house K-12 in our building, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time. We have we're at about 248 right now enrollment K-12. So we're very small, very small. But it's, we were down, actually, I was trying to, what Sarah said with her enrollment down, we were thinking we were going to be down, but we were able to retain our numbers this year, thankfully, and we're hoping that holds off into the next year too. So we didn't lose too many kids this year, thankfully.
So to be completely transparent here, you might recognize or notice that Tawny looks a lot like I look. Well, that's because Tawny is my sister. So just being transparent on that. Asked Tawny to come in because being a K-12 principal really is a dynamic role that not many districts have. And so I wanted her to be able to share her perspective on that. And besides that, she's just way too busy to ever talk to me. So this is just a way I get to talk to her. So that's the other reason. So Nancy, if you would go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Spray, up in Sheboygan, Michigan. It's Sheboygan High School, but we are a K-12 building, or 8 through 12 building. And that just happened probably 5 years ago or so as part of a restructuring of the district. And then we moved the 8th grade into our building as we were closing down an elementary school and just moving kids around. So this year, we are down a little bit. We have 686 students. Last year, we were probably closer to around 725. So, I mean, we lost a pretty significant number. That 686 that we have this year does include 34 shared time students because we are also a career center. And so we pull some students from St. Ignace, Wolverine, Inland Lakes, and also from our alternative high school. So we do have some shared time students, and we also have some part-time students who attend homeschool kids who come in for band, and then some of our kids that are in the ESD cognitively impaired program take art and phys ed with us as well. But our numbers are down, and then our number of shared time dropped pretty significantly this year as well.
Thanks, Nancy. I had a couple principals lined up that work in more urban areas, larger schools, and they are the two that could not make it today. One last night and then one this morning. And if they had been here, their job probably would look a little bit different, only in that they usually have some support to do some of the jobs and responsibilities that these three ladies have to do themselves. So for example, there's no curriculum director, no instructional coaches for the most part. There's nobody that does their homeless school population. They do all the aspects of the job. So while you're not hearing from a principal from a really large school, you are going to get a really good idea of the varied role that a principal might have. So Sarah, at this time, would you just let us know, like, what was your path to leadership?
Okay, so I was a teacher first, math teacher here at Grayling High School. I then ended up moving into the counseling office. Half-time counselor, half-time in the math classroom still. And then I did a very, very short 3 months in the assistant principal's office. And then my principal retired last January. So January 1 of last year was my first day as a high school principal and principal ever. And then COVID happened. So that's been a pretty awesome year. I did take the Path to Leadership program with Tammy, and that is how I got my certificate to be an administrator. Yeah, I think that's what I have.
Thank you, Sarah. Tawny? Are you unmuting, Tawny? Okay, go ahead, Nancy. You go next. Tawny will get ready.
This marks my 29th year in education. As a teacher, most of that, I taught math and biology most of the time in Sheboygan. And actually, I'm a graduate of Sheboygan. I actually got my administrative, I got my master's degree back in 1999. That sounds weird even saying 19, but a long, long time ago. And then just kind of held the degree there for a while. And I was actually our school's student activities director for 13 years in there. And then, I would occasionally apply for an administrative position, get turned down, and I always just did in my own district because my whole family is rooted here. And I will say it took 7 times before I was finally hired as an administrator. And my previous principal who hired me last year as assistant principal, he said, perseverance has to count for something. And he said, no, anybody who is just not going to quit, have to give this person a shot. And I enjoyed being an assistant principal. He had told me right from the get that he was going to retire last year. And they just moved me right into this position. And of course, COVID, I couldn't have picked a better time to come into this, but the way I look at it is I have an excuse for anything that goes wrong. So, but I just I just want to put that encouragement out there. 7 times, and I just kept trying.
Good for you, Nancy. Tawny?
Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't find that unmute button. I was going crazy there. I started out in special education as a special education teacher, and did that. And and I've been with Atlanta the whole time. And in a small district, you find that you wear so many hats. I mean, everybody has so many different jobs to do. So while I was doing special ed, then I started dabbling in the title work a little bit, helping out in that area, which led me to helping out writing the consolidated application, and then worked into, went into doing the dean of students. So I did that for a few years. And 5 years ago now, stepped into the principal's position. I was hired into the principal's position. And I did take the path to leadership classes with Tammy. She was one of my teachers. She wasn't all of my teachers. Let me clarify. But it's a fabulous program, absolutely wonderful program. So that was kind of my journey.
And I will tell you that I was able to keep it professional with Tawny, that during the time that she was in the program, she had to call me Mrs. Jackson anytime we were together, just to make sure that we kept it, professional that way. So starting with Sarah, why don't you tell me what an average day looks like for you? Now, I know that there's a lot of non-averages in every day. I'm just more or less talking about what time you get to school and kind of how does that average day look?
My day usually starts about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I start looking at emails while I wait to wake up my children. I have two middle school kids, so I let them sleep as long as they can, but they do come to school with me. So I typically do emails at home first and then get them up and out of the house. And we usually get here around 7 in the morning. We let our students in about 7:40. So I like to have a little bit of time before students enter the building to chat with staff or have my door open for questions, things like that. Then throughout the day, I'm in and out of now online trainings. I feel like there's a lot more of them now than there were. So in and out of trainings, in and out of classrooms, in and out of talking with people, wandering the halls, all of those things. And then I usually stay until probably 4 or 5 o'clock. I try to stay a little bit later until most people have started to leave. That way, if anybody wants to stop and chat about anything, they feel like they can stop and see me, even if we're busy during the day. So that's a typical day.
How about for you, Nancy?
I usually, first of all, we have a couple of classes that start at 7 o'clock in our building. And so I try to be here, 6:45 before, as kids are arriving for those first classes. So we have students in the building, basically from around 6:45 onward. I use that time, though, our actual classes, most of them don't start until 8 o'clock. So I use that time, gives me 20, 30 minutes to just kind of sort through emails, just look over my schedule, make sure the things that I have to tackle for the day. But, like Sarah said, it just seems like there's a lot more webinars, online trainings, things like that I usually have several of those a week. Parent meetings, IEPs, I have a lot of those scheduled. There's a lot more seat time to this job than when I was an assistant principal. I definitely was getting my steps in as an assistant, where I feel like I'm really tied to my desk a little bit more. I do get down into the cafeteria area for lunches, make sure that, there's just another set of eyes down there during that unstructured time. I usually stay until 5:30 or so. And that's for this year. And that's kind of nice because in a normal year where we have winter athletics going, it's probably 9:30, 10 o'clock before I'm going home, because the winter athletics, having basketball and hockey, and it seems like every night there is an activity going on. And in Sheboygan, we go to everything. And so this year, my husband actually has to see me most evenings, as opposed to last year. So.
Yeah. Tawny, any difference for you?
No, it's very similar. I'm a morning person, so I'm up at 5 and I spend the first hour of my day going over emails, just like Sarah said, because it's a quiet time for me. I'm in the building by 7 o'clock every morning then, and rarely do I get to just sit at my desk and do work. It's greeting kids at 7:40 in the morning and then up and down the hallway, making sure everybody's getting where they need to be. This year with the COVID, our morning routine has changed a bit. So we eat breakfast in the classrooms and just kind of managing to make sure everybody's where they need to be. My mornings usually are spent in the elementary end in classrooms because that's when a lot of the reading and stuff goes on. So I like to be down there during that time. I do lunch supervision. So I'm in the cafeteria for at least an hour a day. Because of the unstructured time, I'm just, all over the place, like walking the hallways in the cafeteria. And I get to connect with kids a lot then too, when I'm in a more casual way than when they're in the classrooms. And then my afternoon is usually just spent down in classrooms in the high school, junior high end. Or being called back to the elementary because I have a runner or somebody's melting down in the hallway. So it's just a go, go, go. And then at the end of the day, kids are out of the building by 3. I sit at my desk and I've got 70 emails to go through all of a sudden to try and kind of manage that a little bit. And I'm rarely out of the building before 5 o'clock. It's usually 5:30 is about when I get out of here every day.
Thanks. And I know that right now times are different, and so that position looks a little bit different. And actually, I think what Nancy said probably applies to Tawny and Sarah as well, is that now that there's fewer activities going on in the building, they have less nighttime responsibilities. But I know that just like Nancy, I know that the other 2 ladies also attend a very large percentage of every activity that happens in the building, which means that they're there until late into the evening every day. So the next question I want to ask is just there's so many of things, but just what comes to mind when I ask you what's the most rewarding part of your job, Sarah?
I think principal versus counselor or teacher or something like that. I think the biggest and most rewarding part is being able to work with both staff and students. In the classroom, your main job is your kids, where now my main job is all 400 kids and all 32 teachers. And I like that I get to really own all of it.
Okay. How about for you, Nancy?
I would say the same thing. My goal in, going into administration was wanting to help teachers become better teachers. And, not only do I feel like, I have all, 686 kids that I'm concerned with and fighting for and rooting them on, but then I also have, teachers that are going through probably the most stressful year of their career, and just being able to be there as a support. And we did a lot of work on the forefront, helping our staff with technology and virtual instruction and giving them the tools to feel successful with it. And it's just, that's been really rewarding. As some of the old veterans who said, I never thought I would see the day where I would be teaching virtually. And they said, with the supports, that it was something that they found very doable. And so that's been very rewarding.
Great. Tony?
Yeah, I agree with Nancy and Sarah. Connecting with your staff and with your kids is very rewarding when you see the outcomes and the fruits of the labor put into all of that. I don't have an assistant principal, so I do that role as well. It's rewarding for me, like at the elementary end, to see a kiddo that couldn't spend a whole day in school because of the meltdowns and the different things, to now all of a sudden they're here all day, they're functioning in the classroom, and that's because of the efforts that you and your staff put into those kids. And I'm a problem solver by nature, and so when my staff comes to me with an issue, it's like, that's where I love that. Let's problem solve around that. Let's come up with a solution. And when you help them own that problem as well, the outcome for that is always so much better. So it's just really working with your staff and your kids and seeing those good outcomes of all those efforts.
Good. And since you're already talking, Ton, why don't you tell us, let's give Sarah a break from going first. Why don't you tell us what's the most challenging aspect of your job right now?
Right now, COVID. It just makes everything harder. Everything we're doing is just so much harder to do. Parent teacher conferences are harder to do. Just everything's harder to do. On a normal basis, probably one of the more challenging parts of the job, if I had to be honest, are parents. Is winning over your parents and getting them on board, buying into what you're doing to help their kids. And once you win a parent over, you've got it made. If you can get the parent on your side, you can do anything. And that's one thing that I really have worked hard at. And I feel like I'm on the winning side of that now after 5 years, is once you get the trust of your parents and your families, your job becomes so much easier. So that's a big challenge.
I would agree. Nancy?
COVID aside, I think the biggest challenge, for me, because I was just a teacher, 2 years ago, or not just a teacher, but just 2 years ago, I was teaching. Probably the most challenging part has been seeing some of my former colleagues in a different way. And just some of the things that they do, and I'm just like, these are just some boneheaded moves that you guys are making, and it's frustrating. The complaining of things that they want me to just solve their problems, and some of it is, like Tawny said, let's figure this out together, not just, hey, you're the principal, make this problem go away. And so that's probably what's really frustrating is just the being asked to solve everybody's problems. And I'm the type of person where, well, okay, I'll do that. And you can really burn yourself out very quickly trying to fix everything for everybody. I would say that's been it.
Sarah?
I agree with both of what they said, but I would also add just staying on top of everything. I mean, I walk through the halls and 5 teachers ask me 5 different things. And then by the time you get back to your desk, you have 20 emails asking more things or wanting more information or all of it. So just making sure you're staying on top of every little tiny piece and having an answer for everyone all the time is hard and stressful. And I don't know if I anticipated that as much as it's happening. And I know it's worse now because of COVID. Like, teachers don't even know if they're allowed to have a kid in their room after school for 5 minutes. Like, it's little tiny questions. By the time I get home, my husband asks me what's for dinner, and I'm like, I don't care, make a decision. And then I feel bad because I snapped over a question on dinner. So I think it's just all the little tiny, every minute of every day is another question.
Mhm. I know I used to say it felt like some days it felt like I could just have stayed home and just taken phone calls and just answered people's questions all day long. Why I don't have to be in the building to do that. I could do that from anywhere. And principals have to work really hard to make sure that they don't get caught up in that part of their job because obviously you're there to do much more than just answer people's questions. And sometimes when you solve their problems too easily for them, um, that was me too. Like they would come up with something and I would in my mind I'd go, well, I could solve that in 2 seconds. Like I got the problem. I know what you could do, but I had to step back and I had to learn to say, you need to help solve the problem because it's your problem. It's not my problem. And you can really get caught up in that, doing that in your job, and it's not really a healthy place to be. So you're constantly trying to figure out how do you put things back on them while not overstressing them as well, but just making sure that they understand they have to have ownership. You have to work in collaboration because you can't be seen as just the person who solves all the problems in the whole district, right?
Right.
So,
well, and I think giving them the confidence that they can solve their own problems
and the permission
is part of that. Yes, confidence, permission, and not right now is hard. And I mean, if anyone on this call is looking at going into administration anytime soon, we don't know when all the COVID restrictions are going to be up. So I don't know at what point we can release the control and the permission for staff to start making their own decisions again. And that's the hard part.
And then you also have to be a person who supports their decisions and realizes that when you make decisions, you fail and things don't always work out the best, but they need to know that if you try something and it doesn't work, I've got your back. It's okay. You know, I know that some things that you're going to try aren't going to work as well, and they need to know that they're safe to take a risk on some of those things. Yeah. So just to give another example, so think about your day to day. Okay, so the day's over for all three of you. I mean, pretty much the basis of your day is over. What is the number one thing on your worry list as a result of today? Right now, the number one thing, the thing you're going to go home tonight thinking, something has to happen yet tonight or in the morning or something has to happen. Sarah, how about you?
Right now is evaluations we have our mid-year evals that need to be done within the next couple of weeks. So just getting through all of we decided to do them on non-tenured for all of them. So that was a bigger task than I think we anticipated, but we felt it was important to make that a priority even during the pandemic. So just evaluations, observations, and getting that mid-year evals out.
Okay. Hey, how about you, Nancy?
Today, my biggest worry is grades. We just finished our semester on Friday, and it's grades and how it interfaces. We use Power School, and with students switching back and forth between virtual and in person, and we had kids just flip-flopping all over the place during the first semester. It created an absolute mess in Power School. And so our guidance secretary went to print a report card just to see what they would look like yesterday. And one of our students who did a lot of switching back and forth only had 2 grades out of 6 show up on his report card. And she could not find his grades anywhere. Now, fortunately, I was able to backdoor my way in, get in through looking at the teacher's score sheets and find those other grades. But they, if you print a transcript on the kid, they're gone. So we are in panic mode right now about grades and credits and kids graduating on time.
Yeah. You can have something like that can just consume days trying to figure out. Yeah. How about for you, Tony? What's number one on your worry list?
Well, my immediate worry list is I'm writing a application for early middle college. So we're meeting tomorrow to finalize with our partner, our community college partner. I've been working on this for about a month, and it's got to be submitted next Wednesday. So that's my immediate, but like Sarah, evals have just been like weighing heavy. It's all different. Teachers are teaching different, and they're worried that you're not gonna, see that it's different, and don't ding me because I didn't do that. And then for me personally, I don't know what is good online teaching. This is all new to us too. So, wanting to be fair and be equitable to everybody, that's a big one too.
Yeah, right. Well, since two of you brought up aspects of the evaluation as, being number one on your worry list right now, somebody just posed a question and said, how do you change the culture in your building, especially during these difficult times, to have evaluations be more of a growth tool versus an I got you tool? So how do you get that through to your staff that I'm not here to get you, I'm here to help you grow? Anybody, one of you three want to weigh
Well,
in on
that's
that?
been a big conversation with us this year is, because the state testing's been taken off the table, and, things have changed so much since March, this past March, and teachers are worried about it. And it's been a big conversation with me and the staff that this is not a, we're out to get you kind of thing. These are the expectations. Let's talk about them. If you're having trouble with part of this, let's work through it together. The only way I would ever want to ding a staff member is if they're just absolute refuse to work on it or work with me or try to grow or try to this stepping outside of their own boxes this year. And I just am very thankful and feel very fortunate that I have an amazing staff, and we have worked together through this whole thing. And I feel like they've done an amazing job. So I don't have the try to get you mindset, even in normal times, let alone in times like this.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. What Tawny said, since I've been here 13 years now. We've never used the evaluation as a got you tool. My predecessor, it's always been reflect on your own stuff, use your own reflections to grow your own practice. And I think part of that is giving your staff something to work on that is for them. So we had PD last Wednesday, and one of the tasks that we had them do was to create a lesson plan that they would use within a week and focus that lesson plan on their areas of focus. And I'm not even looking at the lesson plan. I don't have I have access, but I said, this is not for me. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to do anything. And then this coming Thursday, we have PLCs. So they will then in their PLC reflect, how did that lesson go? And what went well, what didn't go well? What do I need to change with my areas of focus to do better? And again, that's not for us. So I think making these things for your staff and not for you or your evaluation to some extent, obviously we have to do some observations and things, but also putting things in that's for them and their growth. I think that's a way to get their trust. This isn't for us. This is for you to grow and get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And it takes trust. It takes a long time to build that. So when you're a new principal coming into a position, you're coming into either a position that everything was great and they respected the principal and the evaluations were going great, and they're not happy that person's leaving. And so you have that kind of to fight against. Or you're in a situation where the culture wasn't great. And so they're already waiting for you. They're just looking at you like, what are you going to do? How are you going to fix this? So it can be difficult. And so sometimes just being honest with them and have the conversation about just simply say to them, I'm not doing this to be an I get you at all. And you just have to tell them that, and you have to work on that. I always like to use the picture of why is it that when you are an athlete, your coach can say anything to you with any tone of voice, as direct in front of people, and you take it as a coaching thing. But the minute we try and give any kind of input to a teaching position or a teaching lesson, it's looked at as, you're trying to get me. So trying to just change that whole mindset that I'm just the coach. I'm just telling you what I see. And then I'm letting you figure out how to make it better. So it takes a lot of work. It's not an easy thing by far. So what is something start with you, Tony. What's something that when you started the job that you felt you were unprepared for? Now, your background is in special ed, and I think that a lot of people would say it's special ed. So that probably isn't the case for you. But for you, what's the one thing that you wish that you would have known more about before you started?
Well, for me personally, I was with the district for 12 years, 10 years when I took the principal's job. And I had a lot of relationships with staff. And I think the one thing I was really unprepared for was, and I think Nancy said it, the way those relationships changed when I stepped into that position of they would look at it as power. And I never felt I had power over them. It was, I never went at it that way anyway. I didn't feel like I did. And I was, that was a hard one for me to get through. I had to remember what you have to remember. And what I've learned is every decision I make because it affects kids. How is this going to affect the students? And that's what my decisions are based on. And I think that teachers that are really good understand that. Teachers that are, maybe on the fence, they would take offense to that. But eventually we were able to work through that, and we have great relationships now. But that was a really tough first couple of years for me, was working through those relationships and how those dynamics change.
Okay, how about you, Nancy? What's something you felt unprepared for or undertrained for?
There are a lot of things, because especially with COVID last year and that being my year in training, but a couple of the things, just the legalities and just the questions about personal curriculums and just all the little intricacies that I just don't know off the top of my head. And then I was totally unprepared for having hundreds, it seems like, of accounts that I am working with financially and not knowing what do I pay this one out of, or where does this bill, and it just took a while just to get the confidence that, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. You can move money around, and our financial person had to tell me, you can move money, you can set it up how you want, but it just, I think the hardest thing for me is just gaining the confidence that I have to make it my own and figure out how to make this my show, and I'll figure it out.
Sarah, I know you were trained by the best, and your school did one of the best jobs I've seen yet about transitioning and growing their own leaders. So you were able to move into the position in a little slower pace. But still, once it was dropped on your lap and your predecessor walked out the door, what was something that you felt unprepared to deal with?
I agree with you, Tammy. I had my path and my way of getting here. I felt very trained, even with COVID. Things are hard, but I think things could be way harder, and I know they are in some schools. But mine is budget. My lead secretary, so my secretary and who handles the budget at the high school, she then retired at the end of last year. So my principal and secretary both ended up leaving, and our assistant principal, and we have a new superintendent. So I don't know what to do with my budget. I still don't know that I know what to do with my budget. So it's me double checking and triple checking and still thinking I'm doing it wrong. And it wasn't also helpful that we were unsure of the budget for quite a long time and not knowing what that was going to look like either. So my hesitation is definitely the budget and what to do.
It's kind of ironic that you would say that, Sarah, because that's one thing that we heard from our Path to Leader participants over the years. I think we're up to nearly 2,000 people in the state of Michigan have been certified through that program. And in getting feedback from them, one of the things that they felt unprepared for was to manage the budget and to understand the budget. And so we actually, 2 years ago, incorporated a new module in our program about that. Just to teach people a little bit about title funds and how funds work, and added into that module is human resources, because people also felt that they weren't prepared for interviewing and hiring and all of the things that go with that. You know, it's one thing to sit on a committee and help give your input into who would be hired, but it's another thing to set that whole process up and to make sure that you're, you know, dotting your I's and crossing your T's when you literally are going to the Board of Education and you're actually recommending somebody, and have you really done all your work? And so those are two things that we heard over and over. And the other thing is special education. So just to throw that out there for our participants, you know, if you are seriously considering a role in as an administrator, I would encourage you to get involved in some way with the special education department. Maybe even just sitting in on some IEPs. Just maybe if you're not even a person who signs on the IEP, but just there to just kind of see how that process works. I think that's another area that people often feel unprepared for. And it's so big that there's no way that a single module in special education is really going to prepare you for it. And I know that in the traditional path to get your administrator certificate, they say that special education is not even really part of that preparation at all. So those are, I hear that over and over again. So we have time for just a couple more questions, and I want to get to some questions that people had asked. So somebody is saying, how do you get a district to look at you as somebody other than a teacher? You know, or every time your neighboring districts, you hear they have a position open up, but you think, why would I even bother to interview? Because it sort of seems like it's locked in. Now, I don't know that we're going to have the best answers for that question, because the three panelists that are here today all were grown as leaders within their own district. So maybe, I don't know if you just have any input into that, not having experienced you three, but do you have any input into telling somebody, like, how do you have someone see you as something other than a teacher when you're applying?
I think become a leader within your school even. I mean, I was the school improvement chairperson before I came into this office. I was an assistant athletic director for 4 years before I moved higher. Any of those leadership roles, department chair, all of those give you a little bit more of being seen as a leader in general.
Yeah, I agree with Sarah. The more leadership you can take within your own building, also you start to build your network then when you do that. And then you start to be seen by other leaders in other districts when you start to do that.
And I know another thing that helps, and is, we talked about the long hours that go into it, and some of it is showing too that, show up at the athletic event, show that you understand the hours, and that putting in those kind of hours is something that would be, an easy transition for you. But yeah, definitely take on any kind of role that you can to just show that you're willing to take on responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would add to that, when you're applying to be an administrator, everybody that is applying, or at least everybody you're going to consider interviewing, has the same credential, right? Because you have to have the credential to apply for the job. So you can't really weed people out based on their credentials. So you have to figure out what else is it about that candidate that makes them stand out. Well, we know when we're hiring for administrator, the difficulty aspects of the job. And so when we can look at and we know that you don't have any of those experiences as an administrator because you're a first-time administrator. So when we can look at a resume and we can say, oh, look, they were involved with IEPs. They attended a lot of IEPs, in whatever role that was. Or you had a co-teacher, special ed. When we can see things like you were on the school improvement team, things that all those things tell us that you've taken a leadership role, and that leadership role has given you some insight into that job in the district. Now, maybe you didn't have it as an administrator, and your vision of that position will look different when you're looking at it through the eyes of an administrator. But just the fact that you even know what it's about, that you can say, I've been involved in this and this and this. So that's great advice. And that's what I would recommend is a leader is a leader. So be a leader in what you're doing right now. And then they will recognize your leadership, your traits of a leader. Mm-hmm. That's great advice. Somebody else asked so Tawny and I think all three of you, if I remember right, said that you transitioned from an assistant principal to a principal. So somebody's asking, what's the the most difficult part of that transition?
For me, it was just, I don't get to work with kids as much. And, you know, we all got into education because we love working with kids. And so as an assistant principal, you know, at least in our building, I mean, the chief job is discipline. And so even though it might not be always the most positive interactions that you're having with kids, you do get to build those relationships and build that trust with them. And to an extent, you still get to do that as a principal, but you're really there in the trenches with kids. And as a principal, you are really working more with adults. And so that was something I even questioned, you know, do I want to make that move? Because I do like working with kids so much.
Yeah, I would echo that too, that you take a step away from the kids when you move into that position, and you're working more on the business end of things with the adults in the building and the budgets and all that other stuff.
I would recommend though, I meet with our student leadership team once a week, and that has allowed me to keep that little bit of tie to the students, and they then have input on where we're going with our leadership. And that's been awesome for us. We've met even through the pandemic. We've met virtually when we weren't in person, and we meet in person when we're here. So that's been helpful to help with that one change.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to ask then, just briefly, then I'm going to give you a chance to tell everybody a piece of advice if they're considering being an administrator. Before we do that, what are the things that you do in your life to kind of balance that life and work relationship? You know, how do you keep yourself sane, so to speak, so that you're not, your whole life isn't just being a principal?
I'll start. I don't mind starting. Like, as I've already mentioned, I have two kids. My two kids are very involved. They both play 3 school sports, and then they both play travel, baseball and softball. So mine is I schedule everything on my Google Calendar, but I don't miss their sports, and that keeps us a family. So we travel together. We do all of that together, unless they both have tournaments on the same weekend, then we separate. So. But I schedule everything in my Google Calendar or I will miss it.
My kids are grown. I'm an empty nester, so I don't have that part of life to balance, you know, to juggle. But the one thing that my husband and I do every night is we have dinner together every night, and that's our time to connect and kind of talk through his day, my day, and that kind of keeps me grounded. That helps a lot.
You know, one of the things that I was not able to do as a teacher that for some reason I can as an administrator, and I don't know why, but I can, when I leave the building at the end of the day, I shut it off. And my staff knows that, you know, I'm not going to answer emails at night. If it's an emergency, call me, text me, you know, and I will get with you. But I do kind of, I force myself that separation between school and home. My husband and I are empty nesters. So yeah, we don't, you know, we do have that time in the evening together. And then I still, you know, as when I was a teacher, you know, I had a friend on the staff that we rode bikes, you know, during obviously nice weather season, and we still do. You know, so even though you have that separation with some of your teacher friends, you know, you're still friends. And so, yeah, we still ride bikes and laugh. And, you know, I think that's been our motto in my office is if you can't laugh at it, you know, it's not worth it. We have to be able to find humor in our day. So, and that's how I keep my sanity.
For me, I always would say that one way that I kept my sanity is I put the F word in my day every day, and the F word was fun. And so I would look at every day, and I still do that even now in the position I'm in. Even on the weekends, it's just something in my head that I think about first thing in the morning. What am I going to do to have fun today? And then if it's not, I just find, right, then I got to make this fun because this is what I got to do. So I have to find a way to have that fun. That's just kind of what keeps me loving the job as I did the whole entire 32 and a half years that I did it. So as we conclude with the three of you panelists, and then we just have a little follow-up to do with the rest of the participants, if you could just give a piece of advice to somebody who's sitting in a position other than a principal. Now, we have some assistant principals, we have some deans of students, we have a lot of teachers, and then some people who are in other positions within a school. So what's a piece of advice that you would give them? And if you don't mind, Sarah, would you start with that?
I would say network. As we've mentioned, relationships change. This is a lonely job if you don't have a network. It's awesome to be able to text my conference and ask a question and what are you guys doing for this? And I get immediate responses and ideas and thoughts, or being able to do that with anyone. So I would build that network as early and as quickly as you can and hang on to it.
Great advice. Nancy?
I'll go back to what I said earlier, just perseverance, keep trying, and keep yourself informed of things that are happening, at the state level, so that, when you do go in for that interview, you have that knowledge base of things that are currently happening, mandates that are coming through, but you just can't give up. It's hard to hear those, I'm sorry, we went with another candidate, but eventually it can happen, it'll happen.
Thank you, Nancy. Tony?
One thing I would say is keep everything in perspective. Tomorrow's a new day. Today maybe didn't go the way you wanted it to, but tomorrow's a new day. You can finish that project tomorrow. That's one thing I learned, is that when I leave in the day, my desk is never clear. I don't think my desk ever clears off, but just know that you have tomorrow to keep working at it, to get it done, and you eventually will get it done. So persevere, keep it in perspective. The sun will rise tomorrow, and you can start a new day tomorrow to get through that thing you didn't get to finish today.
Well, ladies, I can't thank you enough for taking time to be on this panel. I really appreciate it. And just, already, because I've said it before, but you are absolutely my heroes. And the job that you're doing during this difficult time is just amazing. I talked to two principals yesterday, or Monday, I guess that would have been. Oh, yeah, that was tomorrow. Well, yesterday wasn't it? On Monday, I talked to two principals, and not any of these three ladies, but both those principals said they have spent most of Saturday and most of Sunday, every weekend this school year, doing contract tracing, and getting almost no time off, because every time they get a report of a student who's been exposed, or they have to do that contract tracing, and it happens all weekend long. They're working so hard. And I know that you know that about your administrator, but just being able to acknowledge that, and just tell them that. We don't look for lots of pats on the back when you're an administrator, but anytime you can have somebody say, hey, I see how hard you're working, it means a lot. So thank you, ladies, and you guys can feel free to jump off, and we're going to conclude things, and we'll be in touch. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
So we talked about, we kind of stayed after our last session for anybody who wanted to talk about the Path to Leadership program, but I thought this is our last formal time together, so I thought I would just one more time tell you that the Path to Leadership program, which was designed by MASSP and is currently run by us, is approved by MDE. We were the first program approved, and we continue to have full approval. The program is 100% online with asynchronous learning. You can access it 24/7. Typically, assignments are given on a Monday, and you have till the following Monday to complete them. And I would say on average, you should count on between 4 and 6 hours of work a week while you're in this program. Flexible scheduling, you can finish it in 1 year with a cohort, or if you want to spread out the workload or the financial obligation in the program, you can spread that out over 2 years. And have more time to pay for it. And then a big one, of course, is it's a third of the cost of a master's degree, and it results in the very same certificate that you get if you get a master's degree. As a matter of fact, there are some master degree programs in our state that do not result in the certificate. So if you're going to go that route, and that route is perfect for some people, that's the route I took. If you're going to go that route, make sure that at the end of your master's degree, you actually qualify for the certificate, okay, because not all of the programs do. So just kind of keep that in mind. But if you're interested now, we run a new cohort every 8 weeks. So if you're not interested now, but might be this summer, just kind of keep looking at the pathtoleadership.org page, and you will find the dates for the next cohort. So right now there's a cohort open until February 8th, and then one will open up after that. So if you ever have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. And I briefly saw somebody raise their hand and then it went away. So I don't know who that was. So if you have a question, you want to ask it right now, go ahead and do that, whoever that was.
Hi, it's Jenny Jackson. I was wondering, I was looking through the material on about the program. I was a little confused. Could you kind of explain the internship part of it?
Sure.
I kind of want to understand what kind of time is involved with that.
Okay. The certificate requires up to a 400-hour internship. So a 400-hour internship is assigned to somebody who has no leadership experience in the building at all. So let's say even if you're a teacher at the teacher's level, but you've been part of the school improvement team or part of different leadership teams in your school, you will get some credit toward that internship. If you're hired as a principal or an assistant principal, you don't have to do any of the internship. But the internship is designed to be done while you're in the program, while you're in the classes, and while you're in your current position. So it's primarily project-based. And so you work with your principal in your building to say, hey, what are some things I can work on right now that would help expose me to the job? And we're having people do the internship during times when they're not even in session, because basically anything the principal is doing, you can do and gain hours for it. So it's very manageable. As a matter of fact, one of the participants in this meeting right now said, if you're interested, you should definitely try this path. I'm doing it currently and it's completely manageable with working full-time and having kids. So the program is written by principals, it's taught by principals, and it's written for people who are working full-time. So it is manageable for what you're doing. And the maximum cost is $7,050. And that's if you have to do all the modules and the internship. And if you have a master's degree in something, it's possible you wouldn't have to do one of the modules, and that would reduce the overall costs. So is this like the program at Oakland University I graduated from with the Ed Specialist program? I'm not familiar with, if you're just talking about their master's program, it's going to be very similar because we have to both teach the same standards. The difference is our program does not have anything to do with history or philosophy or none of that takes place. It's about what you're doing right now as a principal. So just a quick example. I teach Module 5. I have since the start of the program, school safety and culture. One of the things that you do is you learn about the laws around safety drills. You learn how many you have to have, when they have to take place, and the assignment is you have to put together the calendar for drills for the next year. So that's an example of the types of things that you do. So you learn about something, and then you do something that helps you learn it even better. So that's the thing that I can say is best about this program. Somebody's asking, can the program be a la carte? I have my master's in administration certification, but would like to get more experience prior to taking a leadership role. Yes, we have had people do that, but also know that MASSP has a digital learning network, which is a network of classes that you can take online that do speak to the role of a principal. So you may want to just look into the digital learning network courses that MASSP offers to see if those courses would meet your need. But if not, certainly we can work around our modules as well. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're done on time, so I'm going to continue on and just say there's two sessions left for the Aspiring Principals Workshop, or for the Aspiring Principals program, and they're both the workshops. So I'm done. This is the part of the program that I take you through, and from here, if you're interested, if you're in a position where you're ready to interview for jobs, or you will be in the near future, you might want to attend the 2 workshops. You can find out about that on our website. They're live sessions, 9 to 12 on 2 different Saturdays. One focuses on preparing for an interview. talking about resumes, talking about credentials. And the last one, you do a practice interviewing, which is really cool. And so they've always been in person, but they will be virtual this time. And so if you think that you're getting ready to apply, this would be really helpful for you. If you're not quite there yet, if you're thinking it's a few years out before you apply, probably won't be as helpful for you, but you might want to consider that. So that being said, I'm here for you anytime I can be of help. There's my email address again, and I'll be happy at any time that you have anything you want to talk about. It's what I do. I support aspiring principals and principals in the state of Michigan, and I take your emails and phone calls and help you any way I can as you work to grow yourself and turn into a school administrator. So thanks all of you. It's been a joy to work with you, and I appreciate that you've been so attentive, and I hope that this was valuable for you. And again, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you in the future. And as always, I will stay on if anybody has anything they want to ask, but you're welcome for all of those saying thank you. You're very welcome, and good luck to you.